stop. You have to do it this way.
I'll take you see. Okay, and we are live on YouTube.
You would be looking at this.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to the City of Wildwood Planning and Parks Committee meeting for today, March 25th, 2026. And let's do the roll calls from town.
Chair Galani,
Here?
Councilmember Rambo,
Here.
Councilmember McCutcheon,
Here.
Councilmember Dodmo,
Here.
Councilmember Crayons, Councilmember Ottenberg,
Here.
Councilmember Trottier, and Councilmember Robleski.
Here.
And we have a quorum.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, everybody. Next on, we'll do the approval of the minutes from the committee meeting on Tuesday, February 17th, 2026. And I have a motion to approve the minutes. Councilmember Robleski, a second. Councilmember McCutcheon, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, good deal there.
Thank you.
Yeah, next we've got, do we have anybody for public participation? I don't see anybody here physically in the room.
No, we don't have any attendees via Zoom either.
Okay, takes care of that. Next, we have under action items for planning matters. We have 4 items ready for consideration. First one being the strategic review and modernization of advisory bodies reporting to the committees. Includes all wards and city, actually Director Vunich. I got Tom on here too.
Yes. Well, first of all, Mr. Chair and members of the committee, thank you for being here tonight. We sure appreciate it. We've got a couple of items that we've been waiting a long time to get to. Anniversary Park resurfacing of the parking lot. So I'm glad you're all here so we can talk about it and see it move forward. So thank you again. Mr. Lee will do much of the presentation tonight on this particular item. But I just wanted to kind of give you some background on the memorandum and the attachments. The memorandum is very similar to the one you received last month when we had a detailed discussion relative to all the different boards, commissions, et cetera, that the city has to conduct business. As part of that memorandum now, there is also the initial table that was requested by City Council relative to all the boards, commissions, et cetera, who staffed them, the meeting frequencies, just some commentary regarding. Also new now to the attachments is the report that the Administration and Public Works Committee completed at its meeting this month. And in that report, they made specific recommendations relative to some of the boards and commissions. Much of that is very similar to the conversation we all had at our February meeting. And of their recommendations, the principal one that Department of Planning and Parks identified related to the Architectural Review Board. As you all may recall, we talked about disbanding it, reorganizing it, doing something to it because the current configuration wasn't working. And so tonight, from Administration Public Works, conversations Tom, Travis, Melanie, and I've had, we have a proposal. And I'm gonna let Tom take it from there if you don't mind, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. With your permission, Chair. Okay. Do appreciate everyone's time this evening and did just want to quickly go over some of the efforts that had taken place at the Administration Public Works Committee. Going through these kind of one at a time, there was an objective from this body and also that body to go through after somewhat identifying what tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 were after putting together the commentary, but also the legal basis for each individual committee. The idea behind it was to assign an actual tier ranking system to each one of the boards and determine, at tier 1, just to go through some of these definitions, would be more the legally required boards that we have that are serving either in a quasi-judicial function or overseeing, a large swath of operations, planning and parks being one of them. We'll dive in here to some of the recommendations, but since they oversee, the whole entire Parks and Planning Committee and the efforts therein, and those budgets, that's one of the criterion, but the other would be more of a quasi-judicial function, which Board of Adjustment, Planning and Zoning, the City Council itself do serve in some capacity. So that was one of the major items that made up what our tier one advisory bodies were. And then going into tier two, those were somewhat of in the gray area, but had been established by ordinance, but also serve in a function that supports either the objectives of a tier one advisory body or helps, support some of the regulations that we have and keeping things moving. Also, some of the strategic objectives that have been implemented over time as the city has grown, that has fallen in and also encompass some of those committees as well. But tier three are ones that are either project specific, and we'll go through a couple of them that the department, with the help of the Administration and Public Works Committee, had come in. And they don't exercise any regulatory or quasi judicial function. The other side of that is that the tier threes also are typically limited in the scope. That a good question that we asked ourselves were, if this body were to make a recommendation, could that go into full force after being reviewed by the council? So does it directly go to council, or after that committee makes a recommendation, does it have to go to another advisory body for review prior to its consideration by the city council? So just wanted to go through again the definitions of the three tiers that were established by the Administration Public Works Committee and then brought over to this committee as we were going through. And then to give a little background as well, after providing these definitions, the Administration and Public Works Committee had given a directive to the department to go through and for tier two and tier three bodies, if they're tier one, identify which boards are tier one, which boards are tier two, and which boards are tier three, to identify them, categorize them, and then pretty much come up with a recommendation of if there's any changes to be made. One of the major changes that was brought up at the other committee was that there are term limits currently associated with our appointed officials. So not just the council members, but if someone were to be appointed to one of our advisory bodies, they're able to serve 2 terms, depending on what that term length is, which is provided in the chart, but they're able to serve 2. Then they have to either go to a different board or they potentially just are termed out. One thing that was brought up is that we will be going through our charter review process here within the next year. And during that time, the committee had said it would be pertinent to go in and really look at that term limit provision, not necessarily for the elected officials, that provision that was passed at the last charter review, but potentially just for the appointed officials. And also in that same vein, possibly looking at the term limits. And if you look through that chart, you'll see that the actual terms of some of these advisory bodies, they're somewhat all over the place. It's mostly consistent, but you'll see some with 2 years, others with 3, some that aren't established, they're established by rule. So another idea was to standardize the terms, and the number that was agreed upon, at least at the committee level, was about 3 years versus the standard 2. So that was something that was brought up, and still kind of working through the recommendations. And the other side was going through some of the actual board specific recommendations as a whole. And the directive from the committee was that if it wasn't a tier 1 and there wasn't an absolute need to have the meeting monthly, that the structure would practically hold a spot on the meeting calendar each year, so that if there is a need for a meeting, that they have a dedicated date that everyone could agree to. But practically speaking, that the tier 2 or tier 3 committees would then have an as needed meeting function. So pretty much at the beginning of each month, you would decide whether or not a need for the meeting was necessary. So go through some of these. We'll start with the tier 2s, and then we'll go through tier 3. The first one was for tier 2 is the Economic Development Committee. That was one that was created for a very specific reason, had a limited scope, and did not oversee a large portion of the budget. It does oversee a portion of the budget, but traditionally the city has not budgeted all too many funds, and that actual budgetary item is held underneath the Department of Administration and the administration budget more generally. So just wanted to quickly touch upon that, but the idea would be to have that meeting possibly go to an as needed schedule, and when needed, kind of the conditions we listed out here that the committee agreed to is that if there's a major commercial development coming in, or if there's an economic incentive that's being reviewed, if there's a large business that's potentially interested in opening and they would need some guidance through our process, that those would be excellent reasons to meet. And then secondly, any type of events or programs that are set up, they would still serve that advisory function over those. That was probably one of the bigger ones, but we'll just kind of go through these and then answer questions. The other was tier 2 is the Historic Preservation Commission. There are a couple things that this board does serve in a more official capacity. One is the demolition of historic assets. They do go through the initial process for reviewing those. And then second, they do help us maintain our C certified local government program through the Missouri State Historical Society. So overall, there is some function there, and that's why it was somewhat in the gray area between tier 1 and tier 2. But there was also talk between the committee of whether or not that could be, if there was a way to be compliant with the CLG program, while also making sure that the commission is available for any demolitions that may come forth in front of the city council. But also, more importantly, that with this historic preservation master plan that's being put together as of right now, that after that plan's put together, the primary function is going to be for that commission is going to be executing that plan in perpetuity and making sure that it receives timely updates when necessary. So that was another tier 2. And the recommendation was pretty much to meet as often as necessary to maintain the CLG certification. Also, whenever there is a demolition within 30 days or so of a submission of an application. And then also making sure that we do still are able to execute what the master plan is going to end up showing for the historic preservation component. The other tier 2, and I'll just try to go through these a little bit quicker, but the Wildwood Celebration Commission, the idea here is not necessarily to do it as needed, but to still have some very standardized meetings. Still would meet as needed on a monthly schedule, but potentially looking at having very scheduled meetings for a meeting right before the Celebrate Wildwood event to pretty much get everything ready and have it finalized for the meeting event that would come forth, and then set those objectives, what we hope to see at the event coming up, and then having a meeting directly after the event where at that point the commission members would really kind of test some of the hypotheses that were brought up at the meeting before, and also just make sure everything ran smoothly and really kind of gear towards the next year, start doing the planning. There would also be possibly 2 to 3 meetings that are scheduled throughout those 2 pivotal meeting dates. That would be, almost mandatory, and that would be more so setting up the logo. If needed, that was something that was done recently, but setting the budget and then making that recommendation to the council. Doing a lot of the things that are in the planning side, right after the event, leading into the budget season. But after that, setting objectives and then maybe only doing a check-in meeting versus a monthly. So that was for not Board of Polk City, the Celebration Commission. Then I did want to jump into this. I know Mr. Vunich had made a comment about this, but the Architecture Review Board, this was something that we have had discussion about, and code had been changed recently to accommodate a little bit of a different structure. But the idea behind this, and what was agreed upon, at least by the by the committee, was that the Architecture Review Board we may want to look at replacing that board with a consultant. After talking with the Director of Planning and Parks here, but also the team, it seems like that could be feasible. And we have had, looking at some of our when we're looking at the architectural guidelines for the town center and also comparing that to some of the plans that do come in, it is a tedious process going through and checking off each individual component to make sure it's compliant with our town center guidelines, which would maybe meet the requirements for having a consultant possibly fulfill those duties. And then this becoming almost a standing item on the Planning and Zoning Commission's overall workload and agenda each month. The idea too, and this was discussed more recently after starting to operationalize some of these recommendations coming out of the other committee reviewing this matter, was that we could potentially have the individual that's submitting the application actually offset the cost associated with review by this consultant versus having the city pay for it. There are other cities that do this, and in this case, it would be commiserate for the amount of money that you are spending on your development yourself. So if it's a larger development, the amount of money that would be needed to go through that review would obviously be expected to be less versus a proposal that might just be for a couple houses. Just going through a little bit further here. And I mean, Joe, did you want to touch upon any of that before I go through the rest of the list? I know there's a few here, but
No,
want to
sir.
make sure. Okay.
Thank you.
Here, no problem. And then Board of Public Safety, Tier 2 as well. This was discussed, and this is currently meeting on a every other month schedule. So right now, the idea behind the Board of Public Safety is that they do review each year our emergency operations plan. They review certain developments that come in that may have a controversial or something that's not perfect for emergency access. They review our police services agreement, etc. The idea behind this now is that potentially have this as an as needed meeting schedule for Board of Public Safety as well. The reason behind that is there was an idea to bring some of those functions to the Administration and Public Works Committee, such as the police budget, police services contract that's currently being reviewed by that committee. City Marshal would still remain, but the idea would be we really look back for this commission, and we look back and saw that many of the things that were coming forth for review have been, changes to our traffic schedule, and some just general complaints about parking restrictions on some of our public roads and that are near schools. So that's been a lot of the content that's been brought forth. Obviously, we do review the annual crash study each year. We also review some other police data that they provide, but most of the time it's very actionable and very acute what the matters are that come forth before the committee. So did mention that they were recommending that would meet as needed, which would most likely line up with how we've been meeting recently, as every other month or so. So that sums up the Tier 2, and unless the chair would like, we can go through the Tier 2s real quick, or I can jump through the Tier 3s and get all these done at once if that would be the preferred method.
Can you ask questions on Tier 2 first?
Certainly.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. On econ development, would we still hold the biannual business meetings?
Yes, that was my understanding. There was no mentioning of affecting the business forums at all, and I think that would almost serve as a primary role after having those surveys come in. That would be a really good reason to meet.
Okay, and in line with that, are we going to be adding a communications / econ dev person to help
Yes,
gather that meeting?
that is correct.
Okay, and one more question. On the architectural review board, would the developer pick the architecture, the consulting firm that's going to review it, or would the city have someone designated?
So I think the way that we were talking about it, obviously this would be subject to council approval and review, but and Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, but the idea would be that the developer has to put up some cost up front, based off possibly the percentage of the construction cost that they're estimating that their development's going to be. And how it would work is though that the city council would actually choose maybe annually a consultant. They review that agreement each year, but this is the consultant that we want the architect that we're going to want to review any development proposal that possibly comes in over the next 12 months. And then how it would work is they're almost on a retainer, and the architect would have to agree to this too, that the individual that's going through that review process is the one that's technically responsible. The city's just kind of holding the keys to allowing them for review. Does that make sense? And that
Okay,
would
yeah, that makes better sense. I just wanted to make sure that was the way it was going to work.
Okay, Councilmember Cutchin?
Yeah, I've got a few questions. So did I read this correctly that basically we're going to take some of the committees that we have now and they're going to be reassigned to either planning and parks or to public administration? Is that correct?
there is some of the duties, but not necessarily the entirety of the meeting. Because all of the meetings, I don't think any of the Tier 2s, none of them were recommended for disbandment except the Architecture Review Board. So these committees or commissions would still be operating in a function, and they would still pretty much honor a date each month on the city calendar. It would just be more so the chair of each individual committee would have really a couple instances or circumstance that would cause them to call a meeting.
And then the term limits, those are for the volunteers? Is that what you're?
That was what and this was something brought up by the Administration Public Works Committee, but the idea was that we currently have term limits both for elected officials and appointed officials. And something that was brought up was that, and this is from the committee itself, there was feedback that when we originally updated that, It was originally just for elected officials, but somehow the appointed officials got put on the ballot language. So the idea was to revisit that during the charter review, but that would be something either we would modify the terms themselves. That's something the council could do with a simple code change of these different committees, commissions, or boards. But if they were wanting to actually change the fact that term limits exist for appointed officials or elected officials, that would be a charter provision that would need to be voted on by the residents.
Right, I mean, even the number of years that a volunteer could serve.
Yeah.
If it was specific to the, what was it, the amendment, whatever it was on the ballot, then we'd have to follow what was on the ballot,
Mhm.
because that's what was passed. So how could you then change it by code?
Well, no, so let me back that up a little bit. So technically right now in the spreadsheet that was provided that shows the different tiers, there is a provision for there. Each one of these committees actually was established at some of them were established at different times. And what was established was different term limits, not limits, but terms for those different boards. So you're appointed, and I'd have to check one of these to get the exact time, but some will have a 2-year term that's established per code. Right now, the charter provision states that no appointed official shall serve more than 2 terms, but there's no language within that charter language, the ballot language, that states that those 2 terms must be 2 years, but those 2 terms must be 3 years. That's where the discussion of what could be changed via code is really how long are the terms. No matter what, you still have to remain with 2 terms. But that said, depending on the code that you want to change and standardize it, it would be up to the code. Does that make sense?
But if the ballot language was, I can't remember, what was it, 4 terms for city council members? Then
Yes.
the way it sounds like it was written, then it would have to be 4 terms for a volunteer as well, the way it was written on the ballot. So,
The one for the city council was a specific one for the city council and the city council only.
Yep,
but
so I'll
he
read
just
it.
said it was on, the way he said it, phrased it, it was on the ballot as well.
No, just for the city council was on the ballot.
And I can read off the specific charter language too. So it specifically mentioned that no person shall be appointed to serve more than 2 full terms on any committee, board, or commission, provided, however, and then it brings in the provision about no time service counted before the 2018 date in which they were serving. So it is for committees and boards, it's 2 years, and then for the council, it's those 4 terms.
It specifically says 2 years?
Yes.
What you read didn't say 2 years.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Well,
It
not,
was
sorry,
term.
not 2 years, 2
It's
terms.
terms.
2
Yes.
terms.
And so that's what I'm
A
saying.
term could be
If
4.
If that ballot language was, you know, what, 4 terms for city council? And then it's got 2 terms for volunteers. Then you would have to use the same number of years for each term.
No.
So, I mean, the way the language was written on the ballot, yeah.
So that's,
Volunteers don't fall in the same category as city council.
No.
No, but the language in the charter change, that's what it sounds like.
Does it
to me.
specify a number of years, Tom?
No.
No, it says terms.
it's terms.
Right, but
Yes.
we have a specified number of years that are attached to a term for a
For the
volunteer.
council
Yep.
members.
It's 4 years, but if it doesn't
It's 4
specifically,
terms.
yeah,
The
4 terms.
council's 4 terms, but each term is 2 years, so. it's
That's
8.
correct. That's
But I'm
correct. So
saying,
that,
do we have, I know it says for volunteers 2 terms, but do we have a specified number of years that are attached to a term? for
so there
volunteer?
is, yeah, so for the volunteers, and just to kind of back this up again, right now, it does have a little provision here that says regular members shall, the terms of the regular members shall be for 5. It does have some, but that's per code. The charter provision specifically states that 2 terms for appointed officials. So where this comes in though, is that the other committee wasn't necessarily saying that we want to abolish term limits altogether for appointed officials for the volunteers. The idea was to either do one of 2 things, to go back and review it during the charter review process, of course, is one of it, but the other side was to make the terms actually a 3-year term and make that standard across all volunteer positions. So if you're on the Wildwood Celebration Commission, you would have a 3-year term versus the current term period. We have different ones for each board, so I'd have to check that real quick. Then the other side of that would be to possibly look at it during the charter review and maybe review getting rid of it, but no one wanted to actually get rid of the term limits for both elected officials or really mess with the amount of time that each individual would serve right now. It would start when someone got appointed.
So 3 and 3, so 2,
It
6
would be-
years, 2 3-year
Yep.
terms.
That was what was brought up at the
It'd be
committee.
6 years.
Anybody else?
Mr.
Oh, Councilmember Rottenberg?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
City Administrator Lee, did the first committee for examination that you mentioned, was that the Economic Development Committee?
That is correct.
And did you say the recommendation has been made that the Economic Development Committee meet on an as-needed basis?
That was the recommendation from the Administration and Public Works Committee, not necessarily the council. This is
Okay.
can be reviewed tonight, then go to the full city council.
So one standing committee is recommending that another standing committee only meet on an as-needed basis. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. Does not the city charter name the Economic Development Committee as one of the 3 standing committees?
Not the city charter, but the city code does list the Economic Development Committee as one of the standing committees, and that does tie into one of the master plan objectives and the whole element of the master plan. There's a couple goals that are tied directly to it.
And does not the city code require that that committee meet on a monthly basis?
That's correct.
Okay. I don't recall being asked for my input on whether or not the Economic Development Committee should change from a monthly meeting format. So I have a grave concern about that. I think the Administration and Public Works Committee is taking liberty here by trying to determine how frequent another standing committee should meet. One of the concerns I have is, although we don't consider urgent matters all that often, when Ed Cohn's Chapter 100 proposal came up and we needed to consider it on a rather quick basis, we were able to do so because we already had a scheduled meeting on the calendar. If we go to an as-needed basis, you know how difficult it is trying to pull together people for a quorum on a committee already. If we meet on an as-needed basis, trying to pull together people quickly to consider some type of an urgent matter is going to be difficult because people already have travel schedules, and we may have a very difficult time addressing something on an urgent basis. So I guess, number one, I've got a strong concern with one standing committee trying to determine how another standing committee operates. And I have a very big concern that at no time do I recall anybody on the Economic Development Committee being asked for our input on how often we should meet. So I would be opposed to any changes.
So in this case, just to add a few items there, right now, this is at committee, so this will eventually go to the full council too for consideration. And quite frankly, if any changes were made, just as you mentioned with the Economic Development Committee or its schedule, not only would there need to be some type of work session motion, obviously with concurrence from this committee too, but the standing committees would almost need to act on it together, go to the full city council, and then if there was a decision to change anything, it would need to go through a code change. We had to bring that back as an ordinance. So that provision that you were calling about meeting monthly, that would have to be altered here. You couldn't just have a work session motion that affected this change. It would need to go through the full ordinance process. Then secondly, on that same note, see here too, one item just as thinking through some of the meeting, how these would actually work and function, because as you said, and how it does typically happen is if you have an as needed, if you don't have a date down at the beginning of the year, folks do have different travels arrangements, and that can be confusing. One thing that we have outlined, at least from a staff's perspective, is even if you were to move to an as needed basis for any of these meetings, that they still should, if they're still except architecture review, which is a little different because it was recommended for disbandment and then having the provisions moved over to planning and zoning and a consultant. But for this, you would have a standing meeting date each month on the calendar. It's just almost at the beginning of each month, does that meeting end up happening? But your points are well taken. And we'll definitely, we can vote on tonight too, but that'll be included in the summary report that goes to city council.
Well, I appreciate the clarification there on a couple of points, but I guess I still have an issue with one standing committee interfering, I consider it, with another standing committee and how frequently they should meet, or making any recommendations regarding that standing committee without any input from the people on that standing committee themselves. Thank you.
Tom, or City Administrator Lee, I tend to agree with Councilor Rottenberg on that piece as far as one committee making decisions about another committee. I will say, to a certain point on this, I think, I'm definitely someone of the belief that it's not necessary to meet just to meet. So I think having the conversation about, whether it is necessary to have a committee meeting each month, if there's not relevant content to be decided upon, just to meet and go through motions of talking about different things just for the purpose of looking at things, if they're not urgent matters that are necessary to be discussed that specifically pertain. So I think from that standpoint, but I think for a standing committee that's already been established by ordinance, that you would still have that committee formed and you would still have a monthly meeting set. And then the chair of that committee would decide on a monthly basis whether it was in coordination with the department, whether it was necessary to have that meeting, right? So, you wouldn't need to have, because I think economic development's one, because I've been on that committee multiple times and I feel strongly about economic development, but at the same time, I think it's a situation here in Wildwood where we've had a lot of struggles, not just hiring and maintaining an economic development chair, but just also having a relevant amount of, urgent matters to discuss and deal with related to economic development. Because I feel like even when I was on that committee, there's a lot of times where we were just talking about all kinds of different things that sounded good, but they didn't really have any pertinent connection to anything in Wildwood that was happening or getting ready to happen, right? So we were just literally talking about things to talk about. So I'm definitely opposed to having committee meetings for that purpose. But once again, I think that a standing committee would remain a standing committee and have an actual scheduled meeting that could then be decided whether it was necessary to meet that month, if there wasn't anything specific. Like to Councilor Rottenberg's point, when Ed Constant came up, there would already been a meeting on the calendar. And so at that point, I've been like, we're meeting this month because we have something specific to discuss.
No, that's fine. What we can do there, Chair, is this was one committee and now we're here at the other committee. These recommendations and the recommendation from Administration and Public Works Committee was to obviously have this review here, but also to forward it to the city council. When this goes to the city council, whatever the vote is tonight will be shown almost as a, black and white negative of if there was any differences in the opinion from either committee, what those changes were and what specifically was recommended from each. So the whole council, any of these changes would have to be approved and reviewed by the whole
Yeah,
council.
for
And if
sure.
anything messes with city code, just as a clarifier, that's why that chart is a very great help. If anything changes for the code, just like architecture review, if it was disbanded, we would have to go back and change the ordinance and go through
Right.
that full process as well.
No, I get that. Councilor Rottenberg?
Yeah, I guess just one more thing. Right now, without making any changes to the Economic Development Committee, we can have a review at the beginning of each month,
Right.
regardless of whether or not we should meet based on the items we think may be on the agenda. The concern
Exactly.
is that once you make a formal change and you classify the Economic Development Committee as only meeting as needed, people are going to start planning their travel schedules, betting that we're not going to meet in a particular month. And that's just going to make it much more difficult to have a meeting to consider urgent matters that may come up in a particular month.
No, I don't disagree with that. I think making a formal change is unnecessary, in my opinion, leaving it as is. But I think moving forward with the conversation and the thought process being that instead of just assuming like it's on the calendar, but it doesn't have to have a meeting every single month just because it's on the calendar, and to come up with an agenda to just talk about and discuss because it's on the calendar is, I guess, the point.
Yeah, well, all three of the standing committees could do that at the beginning of each month.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Without any
absolutely.
changes being made.
Yeah, Councilmember McCutcheon.
Yeah, so we're going through the master plan update. The economic development is in the master plan update. It was originally put in the last time we did the update. So if we start going to as needed meeting, what's the impact on that?
Well, right now, there's currently an objective that says that we would create a advisory body that's dedicated to economic development incentives. As long as that board is retained, that's the part that would really need to be kept to ensure we're in alignment with the 2016 master plan. That said, the master plan has a full element dedicated to economic development. So that's another consideration to keep in mind if any changes are going to be recommended and approved at the city council.
And you just mentioned it become economic development becoming an advisory committee. That was not a standing committee. There's a
Oh,
difference.
sorry. I know that I was just more so anything not city council. I've just for the term since we've been going through a lot. It is a standing committee.
And I'm gonna go back to the celebration committee if that's okay.
Sure.
Am I understanding it correctly that there's only gonna be 3 meetings for that committee?
No, the idea was that it would have 100% have at least 4, possibly 5, with the idea that you would have 2 that piggyback on the meeting and the event itself. So you'd have one right before the event, kind of maybe the week. You could plan it out to be the week before, then have one after the event itself. So you could have a couple weeks to debrief a little bit, but those 2 would serve 2 very important functions. The one before would finalize all the plans and preparations, make sure all the ducks are in a row where fundraising's at for the event for that year, and then execute on the day of the event. And then the meeting afterwards would be debriefing on that event and then setting objectives for the next year. What went wrong, what went right, what can we do better? And kind of setting an agenda moving forward. Then you would have between then and then the next year almost, you would have 2 to 3 meetings sprinkled in maybe every other month where you'd be just doing updates and general check-ins to set standards that set the objectives for that year, also the fundraising goals, et cetera.
Well, I've done a lot of events, and to just have 3 or 4 meetings to put on Celebrate Wildwood, I don't know how the committee would accomplish that because you've got to call, different participants that are gonna perform or gonna have booze or whatever, and
Does the
then,
committee make those phone calls?
well, I would think so. It's that,
do
that's
the-
what they're doing.
Do the committee members make those contacts with the participants?
Ms. Dodwell, certain members do, some don't.
Okay,
But we do depend on them to be kind of our ambassadors out to the community in
yes,
terms of the sponsorships and fundraising.
okay.
Yeah, so I definitely, having done this, I think you're gonna need more than 3 meetings and maybe 1 or 2 extra sprinkled in there.
So
It's a big deal. It's not pulling it all together is a big deal, and it's like a huge puzzle piece. But you're waiting on other puzzle pieces to be brought to you. So if the intent is 3 meetings, I don't agree with that. I can't support that.
Okay, so can I, to answer that a little bit, it would be technically 4 or 5 meetings, with the 2 right around the actual meeting date, and then you'd have 3 almost check-in meetings throughout the year in between. That said, anytime there wouldn't be a meeting that takes place in any given month, then at least from the department, after getting this direction, the department's idea would be you almost would have like a standing item on this committee's agenda to keep up and keep the council informed on what's been going on. And that report would then be forwarded to the city council as well to keep everyone in the loop. Nonetheless, like I said, this is recommendations from the Administration and Public Works Committee, and this will have to go to the full city council. But it would be more like 4 or 5 meetings total per year.
Well, and then follow up on something else you just said, then part of that's gonna go to planning and zoning, and then what I read, part of it's gonna go to admin public works. So, I mean, we always in planning and parks always have items on our agenda that needs to be discussed. And then to add some more to that, I don't see the point. If X amount of things need to be done, they're under committee now, then why move them to another committee? I don't understand that. I'm not asking you to answer me. I'm just saying that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. You're just adding extra things to a committee that we currently have a committee that deals with those things.
Well, in prior years, this committee did assist with Celebrate Wildwood.
Well, I've been here for eons and I don't remember us ever doing Celebrate Wildwood. As far as I know, he's always had a
Just-
volunteer committee. I just,
I got Councilmember Robleski next, but Tom, just to
Celebrate.
clarify this conversation we're having, because I don't want this, we could get in the weeds and spend 5 hours on this conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, so what I don't want to happen, like we're literally just looking at this and we can provide our feedback, but at the end of the day, anything that happens with this or that would move forward as far as any type of further conversation, it doesn't matter what we talk about tonight. This is gonna come up for council in a work session, right?
That'd be correct. I mean, if the thing is, if the
I mean,
committee
we're
here
wasting our
can,
time going around in circles on this tonight.
I
if the
thought,
committee wanted to though and say, hey, I want to hold this up, I think that this is one of those things that's almost a joint item being reviewed by multiple committees. I would say that if you guys wanted to hold it up, you could, but overall,
Hold it up meaning what?
if you guys needed to take a month to digest it, I mean, that's up to this committee, and I don't think we'd probably bring it back.
I
to
just-
administration.
I don't think taking a month changes anything. My point with this is that we could sit here and literally go through each one of these committees and we've got 6 council members here that could have 25 different opinions. And we could be here till midnight tonight on this one topic that accomplishes absolutely nothing. Because then it's gonna turn around and go to the council anyway, and the same 5 people in this room, along with the other 11 people on the council, are gonna spend another 30 hours going around in circles about the exact same thing. So my point is, like, we've already spent 40 minutes on this topic and we've accomplished nothing. And so my point is that if this is going to council work session regardless, all of the things we're talking about here are gonna be talked about there with all the same people that are here along with the other people that are there. So I guess my point is that we're not actually accomplishing anything by continuing to go around. You know, I mean, I love everybody's feedback and I love the conversation, but I'm just, this goes back to the whole premise of why we have meetings and why we're doing committees and maybe why it might make sense to consolidate some of these meetings. Because when you have 3 different committees that are all spending 2 hours having this exact same conversation, so that it can turn around and go to council, where now everybody's collectively gonna sit there and have the exact same conversation again. This is the kind of thing that makes my head explode and why I feel like, you know, I believe there's a lot of good things we all do on these different committees. But once again, I feel like a lot of these meetings, and I think this is where the premise of this idea comes from, is that we end up repeating the exact same process in multiple committees and wasting hours and hours of not just our time, but the staff's time that has to sit through all these different committees, including yourself. You know, how can we consolidate some of these conversations? Or if it's gotta go to council anyway and be debated and discussed and talked about as to what would or wouldn't happen, why wouldn't we then just, if it's an ordinance related situation that would have to be dealt with by council in order to change anything from the way it sits today, which is the case, right? So why don't we would just then now say, why don't we just refer this to council? And we can, you know, for instance, Councilmember Ottenberg's recommendation regarding not making the change, and I agree with that, and leaving it as is, we can notate that, or some of the different minor things that we can quickly come up with, like, hey, what are the 5 points that the people on this committee feel that we wanna just put our notes in there? We can do that, that's fine, but I feel like we've been talking about this now for 40 minutes and we're no farther ahead than we were when we started. Nor has anything been accomplished that's not gonna change what's gonna happen in council.
And
Oh, I've got Councilmember Robleski and then I've got Councilmember Dunn.
Just a couple comments based on what you just said. First piece was the intent bringing it here to make recommendations on the big picture? Because I agree with Councilman Member Otten, or that, you know, certainly that committee I feel like is very important in economic development, because we spend a lot of time at council talking about why aren't we able to do more? So I would hate to see it go to less, but I also understand that as long as the meeting's on the calendar and it's there, but not having any feedback in that process or being asked, I think is, kind of crazy that everybody wasn't involved before it came to that, that committee made recommendations. I also like that sometimes when it does come to the different committees, that if you're not on all the committees, like I watch all of them. So I feel like I'm much more aware because I watch them. Otherwise you get to council and you go, where did this come from? So I do like that you hear about it at the different committees because that helps create awareness. But my real reason for raising my hand was to just clarify, Celebrate Wildwood, that there are a few months that committee probably doesn't need to meet. But there are full agendas every month for that committee. So if it comes to a point that, November, December, there's not a lot we can do because we've just had it and our recommendations start at the beginning of the year. But in reality, we do meet every month and there's a lot on the agenda to discuss and try and decide. But there's also staff members that do a lot of the work behind the scenes that comes back to the committee. But there are committee members that do a lot of work too in that process. So it's just to say, I think it really does depend on the committee, what they do need in terms of recommendations. But I think like what you said, it's more than just 3 or 4 meetings a year. That's it.
No, thank you very much. I agree with most of that too. Councilmember Dodwell?
Would it make any sense to provide a rating matrix?
God.
I know some of you hate rating matrices, but there's no other way to capture effectively.
I was gonna, and I don't think
And,
that's a bad idea.
provide that to the council
My-
members as part of our work session before we get to the work session. Give it to us 2 weeks before the council meeting and say, rate the benefits, strengths
Yeah,
and
no,
weaknesses of a particular committee from your perspective. And if we don't have that committee, what do you recommend doing? And
But that's what we're supposed to be doing right now.
Yeah, but my point that I was bringing up earlier though, and this is the part that I feel like we run around in circles, is that we can sit here all night
I
and we
know.
can all do this and we can rate it, and we can do whatever we want. And the thing is, when it gets to council,
it'll get rated in.
99% of the council is not gonna pay a damn bit of attention to anything that we recommended or anything that came out of committee. Everyone's gonna have their comments and everyone's gonna wanna talk about it and discuss it based on their personal opinion at that time. This is what happens in council meetings every single time. Or Director Vunich or Director Brown, present what came out of the committee and it's on the agenda and we say, the committee recommends X. And then we still have a 2-hour debate in council because everyone on council, half the people don't pay attention to what was discussed in the committee. And the other people have their own opinion and we still have we could spend 4 hours debating this and talking about it, making recommendations here, and it will not take away a single minute of the conversation we're gonna have in council when it gets there, is my point.
But
And that's why I think we need to be more, we can talk about certain things and bring up ideas and provide our, have a short conversation about it and then provide some feedback. And I think we just gotta be careful because what ends up happening is we get off the tangent and we spend an hour or 2 in the committee on one topic. And then we make a recommendation, then it goes to council and it's still a 2-hour conversation there. Because it's like we're starting all over again. And I feel like we do this over and over in council, which is part of what negates the value of the committee because the council doesn't really pay attention to what the work the committee did. They relitigate the entire thing from scratch when it gets to council. And so that's what I feel like, if there's something we can do to mitigate the amount of time that happens, or how we can
Part of why I
alleviate
was
that.
saying, could we have people
Yeah.
rate what's on this page as to yes, they're for it, no, they're against it, and a comment. And then if that can be done the week before our meeting starts, that would allow staff to pull all that together and say, here's what the council came up with. What do you guys want to do now that we have to vote on it? That's
Councilwoman
just my
Sessions?
suggestion.
So the committee is part of the governmental process. I mean, that's, you have your committees.
I understand what the basis is.
And it's not, to me, us discussing this, because it's going forward, I don't think it's a waste of time. Do we need to do every line? No. But, you know, this came out of one committee, so I think this committee should have an input on it.
Right, but I'm saying
And
is
we
that,
don't know what every council member is gonna do, if they're gonna ignore it or not when it comes to council. You don't know that. Yeah, you're gonna have different.
I've been on the council for 6 years. I've watched it happen with 95% of the topics. So I'm just giving it from experience, but what I'm saying is that, okay, the other committee suggested that these changes are made and we move like
Yes.
economic development to as needed and all this stuff, right? So basically, our recommendation to council should be, we agree with that committee or the other committees that those changes should be made, and that's our stance, or we don't, right? So
Yes, that-
from this conversation, my standpoint would be that it sounds like the collective opinion of this committee right now is that we don't believe that these changes should be made to the ordinance and that these standing committees should remain standing committees. And whether we say we think that they should or shouldn't isn't gonna change anything that goes to council. Council's still gonna get it, and they'll hear planning and parks said we shouldn't, public works said we should. Now let's open the book and start from scratch and start talking about it, cause that's what's gonna happen.
So that's, with your
That's-
permission.
I mean, that's my point.
Yeah, and what we'll do from tonight, and obviously having the discussion about the Economic Development Committee, there was comments about the Wildwood Celebration Commission. If we wanted to, what the department was hoping to get tonight would be firm motions, if there was any disagreement, which there is here. If the full committee disagrees, to say, hey, you know, these recommendations, what's presented at least in the report tonight. If there wasn't anything that's objectively you're disagreeing with, then it goes as is. But if there's something that really is, you know, like the EDC, we, as the committee, would disagree, and then that's going to change the report from staff. We're going to go in and say, Administration and Public Works said do this, and then Planning and Parks said do this. And we'll kind of highlight, these are the ones that there was agreement, and then there's others where there was disagreement. So maybe we just focus in on the disagreement, but we still get some of the efficiencies that have been identified.
Council Director Bunish.
First of all, just to jog your memory, back in 2025, due to the different standing committees taking on, let's say, things that might cross boundary lines, you all authorized us to basically carbon copy all of the other committees with our reports,
Yeah.
besides them receiving them
Right.
at city council.
Yeah.
I didn't take the liberty to basically include boards, commissions, and committees that don't report to you all. So I wasn't trying to hide economic development. It's just not one that necessarily is staffed by this department. And so tonight, you actually have recommendations from the department regarding the 14 that we do staff either regularly, occasionally, or infrequently. So there is a
This
report.
is just for this department?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess then, in order to expedite this and move this meeting forward, because like I said, I feel like we could just continue to go around and give comments and talk about this for the remainder of the evening. And to provide some level of feedback or direction from this particular committee on these items, should we then go through what are the, you know, the several that we just discussed, like economic development is one, and then Wildwood Celebration is another, and give a recommendation on each one of those points as a yay or nay?
Yeah, that would be acceptable, and then we would consolidate that into something a little bit more straightforward in the summary to the council.
Councilmember Ottenberg, did you have a comment?
Well, just that I'm not quite sure what type of motion we're going to make here concerning the recommendation. But my recommendation would be that if we're going to forward something on for consideration at the work session, that we definitely make note of the fact, I'm guessing, but I can't be sure. I would make a motion that Economic Development Committee be removed from forwarding this to the work session for consideration. I don't know if I stated it properly or not.
I think our motion would be regarding the economic, to what you're saying, it's an agreement with what you're saying, but our recommendation would be that the economic development would not be like,
Would be maintained.
would not be changed,
Okay,
the ordinance. The ordinance would not be changed to make it not a regular committee.
All right, I'm okay with that. Thank you.
Because I think we ought to have a full listing of all of our boards and commissions. If this is going to the full council, bring over what was at admin and public works, add it to ours, and add anything from economic development to it. And that way the council's looking at all of these boards and commissions at one time.
What if you don't discuss it? How are you getting there?
You can discuss it at council.
No, I mean, if this committee's gonna make a recommendation, if we don't discuss it, how are we gonna come?
He's
with
getting
the-
ready to move us forward.
Yeah, we're gonna just
gonna go one by
decide
one.
what we think we should. I mean, it's pretty black and white. I mean, we don't have to go through and have a lengthy discussion on each committee. I mean, that's not gonna get us anywhere, because the problem is, it doesn't matter whether we say we think it should be, you know, as needed or not. It's still gonna go to council. All this is gonna say is it's what your opinion is as of right now. It really is what this is. And then when it gets to council, there's still gonna be a full discussion and debate.
I understand, but that we're not, they're asking for a recommendation from both committees. If we don't, I'm not saying we need to discuss every point, but if somebody has a concern about something, we need to discuss that so we know how we're gonna vote on it before the other committee put together a list.
We've been discussing it for 50 minutes.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yeah,
There's the tier one, as Tom described it, that stay because they're enabled by state statute,
Right.
part of the charter, et cetera.
correct.
The tier three, they all have sunsets already.
Yes.
If we wanted to focus on what stays, what goes, or what changes, let's look at tier two.
Correct.
As
And
we're
that's
at-
what we're talking about right now is,
So we
right?
really only need to focus on those because either you can't or they're already sunset based
Right.
upon their.
So,
death.
so with that being said, Tom, what are the tier two? What are the specific tier two committees that the other committee
That had changes
Nice.
attached to them.
that have changes attached to them for the other committee?
And quick note, Mr. Vunish is correct that the tier threes all have sunset provisions already, and the recommendation was almost to let them, work out their natural conclusion and then end. The tier twos, though, that were the department even expected was going to be more of the discussion was first. These are from the Administration and Public Works Committee. Was economic development. There was modifications recommended to that. Historic preservation. Wildwood celebration. Architecture Review Board, Board of Public Safety. Those were the items that tier twos that had recommended changes.
Right, so I think what we need to do then right now, because we've already spent a lot of time on this, is go through each one of these. Right, well, I'll start with historic preservation. Does anybody have any questions, concerns? And these are the 5 committees that the Public Works advised should go to as needed?
They had a few that were a little, I can go through and give a quick update on that again. It was, most of them were deferred to an as needed basis, but economic development was as needed. Historic preservation, there were a couple components, it was as needed, still would hold them every month, a date every month, but if there was a demolition recommendation or or anything that was revolving around the CLG program, to keep that up, those two would be reasons to meet, or if there's something identified in the Historic Preservation Master Plan, that would also be a reason to meet. Wildwood Celebration Commission, a little different. It wasn't necessarily as needed. It would still hold a monthly item on the agenda, on the calendar. That said, the idea would be to focus in and hone in on probably more like 4 or 5 meetings is what was discussed. But if that's something we want to discuss here to change, that's fine too. And then the last one was Architecture Review Board. 2 more. Architecture Review Board, the idea was to disband that board, replace it with a consultant and have that consultant funded by the individual applying. And then lastly, the Board of Public Safety, meeting that to an as-needed structure.
So I think let's start with let's try to knock these off and the easiest first. So architectural review, I think we can all be in agreement that would be disbanded and we'd use the consultant, or does
Yes.
anybody have a problem with that?
No.
Okay, somebody make that motion.
I'll make that motion.
Councilmember Dodwell. Second, Councilmember Beluski. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. We got 1 going. 4 to go. let's
Economic
go,
development's already done.
yeah, economic development, we already discussed, so let's do a formal. I'd like to make a motion to keep economic development as is, as a standing committee and not change it by ordinance.
Scott,
Councilmember
Yes.
Dowd. Councilmember Ottenberg,
Yes.
any conversation? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Boom.
One thing
Alright.
I would like to just make
Yeah.
a comment on that particular group is that we need to clearly identify whether there is a need to meet based upon in a
Actionable item.
actionable item for that committee.
I agree.
But that would be up to the discretion of
the chair.
the chair
Yeah,
and
department.
the department.
All right, let's go to public safety. And state what the recommendation was on public safety.
Yep. Thank you, Chair. So Board of Public Safety was recommended to move to an as-needed structure. It is currently every other month. Just to go over real quickly, the Board of Public Safety, the main things they do oversee is, changes to the traffic schedule, possible parking restrictions that are placed on public right-of-way, any major items that do have safety considerations that come on as time goes on as needed. Already the police services contract and the police services budget, if you will, but it's also reviewed by MMPW, but reviewed in October. And then lastly, the emergency operations plan. The idea would be that they would move to an as needed basis, still covering the, police items, tracking those yearly reports, and then also making changes to the traffic schedule, making recommendations on them. But then some of these more monthly items would go to the Administration and Public Works Committee.
And that's, okay, and so that's what the Admin and Public Works Committee
That's
advised.
correct.
And how does the department, what is the feeling of the department on that?
So speaking with is the city marshal, but also with our director of public works and city engineer and the captain of our police precinct, I think having a Board of Public Safety has a nice purpose to it because there's like an outlet for residents to come in if there is a concern that they have. It's dedicated to public safety and it shows that the city takes that seriously. I will say that this is one of those things that we had found just over time that the agendas were getting a little bit lighter before when we had when the city was forming and coalescing. We were trying to update our traffic schedule, be able to put in signs where necessary, make sure all the paperwork matched what was physically out there in person. And quite frankly, we had a lot of different HOAs and whatnot coming to the meetings actively and asking for changes in their subdivision, whether it be speed humps or changes in speed limits. Right now, I can say that we do not have many visitors that come to the meetings. Most of the time when we do get something, it is mostly a parking restriction that is being placed near a school. That's one of the major items we review. And then also we have had a few instances where we'll review a traffic schedule change for a speed limit. Something we've made sure of is we're keeping it 25 miles per hour, but there's a lot of it comes down to parking restrictions. So right
Okay.
now, I think that I really actually appreciate the every other month schedule for that meeting. It seems that we do get enough items to come up and this in the format it is now. An as needed schedule would most likely correlate to what it's currently being done. So it'd probably be every other month too.
So basically just keep it as is.
Yeah, if it was kept as is, I think that would be consistent. We would probably be calling a meeting every other month anyways.
Okay, would someone like to make that motion? Counselor Dodwell. Second on the motion,
What is the motion?
to keep the public, well, no one is advising to disband it, but to keep the public safety board as
As
is,
is.
and instead of going to as needed, just keep it every other month the way it is.
But what part of that's going to admin public works?
None of it.
I thought he just said.
That was it.
Admin and Public Works wanted to move it to an as-needed meeting, and if something came up that needed to be done, that it would go to Admin and Public Works in between. We're just saying, City Administrator Lease basically said if it was as needed, it would probably be every other month anyway. So in that case, we might as well just advise to keep, per the department's recommendation, as opposed to Admin and Public Works, just keep it as is, right?
Yep. And
That's
the
the
same
motion
thing.
that counts. that's a motion that Councilmember Dodwell made. So we just need a second on that, and then if there's any discussion, we can have that discussion. Anyone?
Well, I'm reluctant because I think they should have the flexibility to say, okay, it's been, it's every other month, but we still don't have much to discuss. And relieving the staff of the requirement to have a mandatory meeting sounds like a good thing to me in a lot of.
Or maybe we could say, keep it scheduled every other month and leave it up to the.
Yes, and
the
if the
chair
chair
and
can
the
decide.
department
Chair to
to
decide.
do it as.
I'm
needed.
a lot more comfortable with that. And I
And
will-
just, oh,
Go ahead.
sorry, Dr.
Well,
Wu, I was
if
gonna say
that's-
that all of these, if there's any changes that are made, these, since these have all been, part of the history of Wildwood too, they're going to maintain a part on the calendar. So even if there was an as-needed change for Board of Public Safety, we would still highlight because that helps us when HOA is
Right.
called to rent out the community room or the council chambers. We're gonna make sure we have that in tow.
Yeah.
Okay,
sure.
so I would like to change Katie's motion and she's fine with it, so we'll just make it the
Yeah,
new motion.
we got a
and-
motion, and a second to keep it on the calendar every other month, but meet as needed per the chair and the department's decision. Right?
Got it.
All right, that's 3 down. Let's go to historic preservation. Oh, we got a vote. Yeah, we got a motion, a second. Any further debate on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstention? Okay, thank you for that. Historic preservation, Tom,
If I
or
could maybe-
Director Vunich, yeah.
First of all, we're going to be completing the first historic preservation plan for the city this early summer. There are a whole lot of new goals and objectives. So my plea to you was, no change now, we can come back in a year, but let's see how the plan fits before we start kind of whittling our opportunities to kind of implement. And then secondly, we have, I believe, 3 or 4 applications now since the plan started for our local registry, people wanting to put their assets on the local registry, and that's a kind of a meeting intensive process because under the code, we have to have a public hearing at HPC, we have to write reports, and then we have to have a public hearing both at city council. So I would ask for no change in the interim. We can certainly return after we get the plan in place and know what we've got. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Director Vunich. Would you probably like to make that motion?
I've got a comment.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, the HPC is invariably a full agenda and it gets a little, turgid at times in the meetings, but there's a lot of discussion and it's useful discussion and so on and so forth. And I think it would be very hard to make it to change it from a month. Matter of fact, they're pretty long meetings. And, and if we made it every 2 months, it would be longer. And I'm gonna make a motion here in a second, but my personal opinion is that nothing would improve city government more than having mandatory graded pop quizzes for the assigned reading. Because nobody does it, and then we get in and people show up at council and they want to just ask ridiculous questions that are covered in the writing. It drives me buggy. I don't think we're gonna
Okay.
solve any of this problem. But-
One thing, not everybody doesn't come prepared, okay?
No, of course not. I'm not suggesting any particular person, but I'm saying that drives a lot of discussion that doesn't need to occur. I think most folks can agree.
Right, I 100% agree.
Okay, so anyway, I will move that we keep the HPC unchanged.
Would somebody like to second that motion?
One second.
All right, second by Councilmember Cutchin. I couldn't agree more. I think that's a great idea and it's a very important part of Wildwood. So would there anybody like to further discuss that motion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed? Any abstention? All right, we're good there. Last one, Celebrate Wildwood. Director Vunich or City Administrator Lee, would you like to
Yeah, I can go. over
reiterate
it.
again what the findings from the other committee was and then we can figure out what we want to do? Or what, and
That's
also give us what your recommendation is from the city side.
Yes, so from the other committee, they had recommended retaining obviously the commission as a whole, but changing the structure to align a little bit closer, going back into it, having one meeting prior, so a meeting really close to the actual date of the event, a meeting after as kind of a post-event evaluation and setting objectives for the next year and kind of a debrief. And then having the report had said 1 to 2, but as we discussed it, it was more so 2 to 3 sprinkled in throughout, kind of an every other month throughout, versus you would probably pick up the frequency right behind. So I would say let's just lock it in at 5 meetings per year instead of these scheduled. Right now it's monthly. So it'd go from monthly to having a little bit more of a offbeat. They would still maintain a spot on the calendar each month. I know that the Department of Planning had some notes on that too. So if Joe has some items to bring up, that would, with your permission, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lee.
Yeah. Yeah.
Generally speaking, the commission meets about 9 or 10 times a year. We already plan a couple of breaks just because as we move out of the celebration season in the fall, there's really not much we can do. We set the budget. We basically do that kind of check down. How do we do? What should we think about? And then sometime in January or February, we start back up. So relative to this, I prefer not to put a number of meetings, but I'd certainly say it could go to an as-need basis.
Okay. The department concurs with the committee's findings, so
Yep.
would somebody like to make a motion to move that forward, or does somebody have just sort of
As needed.
as needed? Anybody like to second that? Second by Councilman Rambo. Any further discussion on that? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Thomas and staff.
you.
for the
Thank you very
detailed
much.
Document that you put together that I read before we came. So,
I read it.
Not everybody.
times Before.
I should have said.
No,
not
that's
every-
great. And I mean, like I said, and I don't,
Almost.
in fairness, I don't mean it sounds like a hard ass or anything, but like I just get, I think sometimes we just need to like buckle down and actually take action on what we can get in the weeds and life just keeps spinning and we keep going. So thank you, everybody, for the good conversation and for getting on point and getting that done. So take us to the next item on the agenda, which is urban night sky designations of city park sites. Ms. Ripito.
Good evening, and thank you, Chair and members of the committee. So the Urban Night Sky designation has been a conversation that started back in 2021 when the city was approached by the International Dark Sky Association regarding potentially certifying our community park. They're a 501(c)(3) nonprofit organization based in Tucson, Arizona. They're dedicated to preserving natural nighttime environment by educating policymakers and the public about night sky conservation and promoting eco-friendly outdoor lighting. When we started this conversation, there were only 5 designations in the world, and now there are 16. One of them was actually Olivet. They're Stacy Park. Yeah, thank you. Drew a blank on that one. There's Stacy Park, and that was back in, I think, 2021 that they had that designated. But at any rate, at that time, the city started looking into exactly what this was, and there are several designations. They have dark sky reserves, dark sky sanctuaries, dark sky communities, and we started looking into, what it was, and realized that we came really, really close to being able to qualify as an international dark sky community because the city of Wildwood has such conservative lighting regulations as is. However, they're not quite conservative enough, and the leap to get from point A to point B, despite it seeming really small on paper, is really expensive to go through and replace lighting. And then also you have to impose lighting on businesses and such and turn off street lights. And so it did not seem like a worthwhile endeavor. However, the Urban Night Sky Place designation was created to for like properties abutting urban areas that would represent good lighting, like best management practices and such, and act as a way of promoting night skies and educating the public as to why we need them, and why lighting pollution is not great for the environment. And so community park being so close to an urban area, but also with very little lighting over there, seemed like a perfect place for it. And our Bluffview Park has no lights, so that also seemed like a really good location. And so basically, these designations, it's their responsibility to, you know, promote these best management practices to surrounding communities, help educate the public on not only like our lighting and like public like place lightings, but also what they can do at home to help out. And you know, light pollution has always been kind of a big deal in Wildwood. So this is a great program for that. The formal application process can take between 1 and 3 years, just depending on how much time you have to invest into it. It is actually a pretty detailed application, and the most time that you need to spend into it is the application process. And it also involves things like taking night sky readings at night, and you have to find not cloudy nights and not like full moon nights and stuff. And so coordinating that's a challenge. But once certified, the city would be expected to host either events or, you know, public outreach as far as the light pollution is concerned. And the International Dark Sky Association, they're building a statewide team of experts that can provide training for city employees in order to be able to effectively promote this and to the public. And upon certification, they'll continue to work with certified places to promote their work through their media relations, member communications, social media outlets and such, as well as us doing it on our social media. It can be used to enhance the visibility of these locations and promote them and foster increased tourism and local activity. So it's a good thing. And at the time, the committee was supportive of pursuing the Urban Night Sky Place designation for both Community Park and Bluffview Park. And according to the Dark Sky Association, we can include both parks on one application. So it only seems natural to just do that. And if one of them ends up not qualifying at any point in time, then we can drop it off of the application and just certify the other. Community Park, right now, the current lighting that's there does not meet the Dark Sky Association's regulations for it's too bright. And so the department's pretty confident that we can just swap out the actual lighting and not the entire fixtures and solve that problem at minimal cost, hopefully. We have not researched the cost yet, but if that's problematic later on, we could drop Community Park off. Bluffview Park is also owned by St. Louis County and leased by us, so we would have to do that in cooperation with St. Louis County. But either way, they're great places to have these designations, and Community Park, you know, could be better for hosting some events, and Bluffview could be better for hosting other events. And so having both definitely would not hurt, and being able to brag that we have 2 of our parks is always good. In order to do this, we would need to create a lighting management plan just for our parks. It does not need to be citywide. It would just be for the parks that are Dark Sky associated. And the application process is approximately 3 to 5 hours per month. Oh no, the application process requires more time than that. After we're certified, they anticipate we dedicate maybe 3 to 5 hours a month towards keeping up with the certification and or events or publications or something like that. But yeah, and so the cost of the program is relatively little. Aside from that, it's $250 for the application along with a $100 annual membership fee. Yeah, at the time of these discussions, the biggest concerns were that the designated parks would have to be open later hours so that people could actually view the night sky at these dark sky parks. But at the time we confirmed with the IDA that they don't need to be open year-round late. You can have special designated nights or like, you know, when cool solar things are happening. And so you have to have X amount of nights in which the parks are open later. And Bluffview is open till 10 p.m. as is. So I don't know that there would need to be any changes there at all. But Community Park, we would. And as far as the lighting at Community Park is concerned, you know, it takes 1 to 3 years for the city to get certified. And then the lighting would have to be changed within the year after certification. So there is time to like build in that anticipated cost for changing out lighting in there. And so, that being said, the city has fully intended to pursue this designation every year for the last several years, but it's one of those things, we've had so much going on, it's one that can easily slip to the back burner. But that being said, the intent of like this designation is for education, outreach and things like that. And the city has been doing those things over the years. We have posts about Lights Out Heartland on our website. We've put up posters in the vestibule. We've handed out flyers at events, like we have incorporated a lot of things. There's gonna be a dark sky article in the upcoming Gazette. And so we have been putting forth more effort to reach out to the public. There's also pamphlets that we intend to have put into our new resident packets, just to let people know that, you know, your outside lights do matter. And although you might appreciate a floodlight, it's not necessarily great for the environment. And so, so that being said, we have been keeping up with the intent of the program, even if we don't have the bragging rights yet. And so, that being said, you know, we've also discussed this at the master plan meeting and the importance of dark skies there. And so we have goals regarding that. Given the whole moratorium on our parks and budgetary constrictions, and many of our projects winding down, we feel like this is probably a great time to actually dive into this and move forward sooner than later. And so included in your packet is a timeline that we hope to maintain in order to get the park certified. I have it not starting until June, just because right now our fundraising for the Village Green has been consuming a bit of time, but we've been working on it. And so we anticipate that we have a lot of the information gathered and the application process might actually take less time just because we're already like partway there. So that being said, the department will provide updates along the way as we progress through this, and or if we, you know, come up with any interesting low-cost events. We're talking about combining informational opportunities with other events. You know, perhaps when we're having an event that's going into the evening, maybe invite, you know, an organization that has telescopes and do like, you know, some sort of event incorporated with another event, or incorporating educational opportunity with our Shivering Shadows, or, you know, things that were already outside at night anyway. And so that's kind of the goal, to keep costs low enough and still be able to meet the requirements as far as the education. And so with that, that concludes the department's presentation. We just wanted to give you an update on where we're at and where we hope to be. And hopefully by 2028, we will have at least one park designated, if not both. And if the committee has any questions, myself or Director Vunich or Mr. Newberry will hopefully be able to answer them. If not, we will get you answers.
Awesome.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much for that presentation. And are you looking for any specific action by the committee tonight?
Not at all. We've just had it on the list of things to do, and so wanted to provide the committee with an update on where we're at and why.
Awesome. No, I think it's great. Anybody else?
Yeah, just a couple comments. I've supported this from the very beginning. And I think it's just a great thing. I've had calls from folks who are interested in the issue, if not the designation. And I've had a number of calls recently about the new MoDOT lighting, because it's awfully garish, and I don't know if they took any sort of night sky compliance into account when they put those up. But it would be great if we could inquire of them and, you know, see what, you know, can be done about that. Cause I personally, I miss the Milky Way, right? And, and even if we all got our parks into compliance, there's such a glow to the east from the city on out to Ellisville that we would never get to where we can see more than a handful of stars, which is very sad. But it's, so this effort is more about the benefits to wildlife, I think, than it is to you know, let kids see what the sky used to look like. My questions are, community park is 100 acres roughly, isn't it, Joe?
67.
Okay, and what about Bluffview?
It's 100.
Okay, so my yard's in that range. And I'm as night sky compliant as they come with my lighting, exterior lighting and all that kind of stuff. Is there any opportunity for private citizens or residents to jump on the application or make a separate application, or do you know that?
I will look into it. I honestly don't know. However, I feel like it's usually public spaces because it
Yeah,
has
that's
to
what I
be,
thought, but
it has to be open to the public, for them to be able to actually go view the sky. And so if you would like to make your yard public, then maybe.
Is that a donation?
well, I've offered parts of it, but I'm not sure I'm ready to give up the whole thing, so. Okay, well, anyway, but I just wanted to encourage you to keep at it. This is a great thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And this year we even reached out to Singer's Ice Cream and Good News Brewing, just to see if maybe they'd humor us and do like a dark sky flavor for the month of April, because it's dark sky week. It's also bird migration. And
Oh,
they
that's
both
great.
agreed to do that. And so there will be a dark sky beer at Good News. And at Singer's, I'm assuming a dark chocolate of some sort type of ice cream. And so, yeah, there's all kinds of fun ways that we can incorporate it. And, so we're getting there.
So drinking beer and eating ice cream, that's making a statement in favor of the environment.
I feel like it
And
makes a
that's I mean,
statement,
that's what a great thing.
Just
Absolutely.
make sure you drink your beer in a glass.
Thank you very much for that
Thank
presentation,
you.
that update. Great program. Next on the action items is Route 66 historic markers. Director Vunich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the committee, if you feel like you've been on a roller coaster with this particular item, you have. As of Friday, when this report was prepared, the secondary manufacturer of the marker was having trouble with the backside of the marker, specifically the map. The department had reached that point like, we're gonna miss the anniversary if we don't get something moving forward. As of Monday, they figured it out. So tonight, the department is respectfully requesting no action on this item.
All right,
Okay.
next, move on. We're
All right.
catching back up here.
Yeah,
Mr.
we have-
Chair, we typically kind of go real quickly over this one. Melanie, Travis, along with direction from Tom, substantial direction from Tom, have redone the development site on our web page. I'd really like you to see it. I know we're a little long into
No,
the,
go ahead. No, we're good.
they did a great job.
Yeah, no, thank you. We'd love to see
Just give me a few moments to.
That's why Travis is here
Give it-
tonight.
it.
Okay, so as Director Vunich mentioned, we made a substantial change to how we share information with our residents and the general public about current developments within the city of Wildwood. And we tried to do it in a context of how the residents think about the information and not how planners think about the information. So let us know if we haven't accomplished that. So this is the landing page for the current developments page, and we'll direct anyone inquiring about certain things to this page. So the thought process was that any person could find a development that they might be interested in using three different ways of finding it. The first would be if they receive a notice in the mail advising them of a meeting date. So that's this first tab here, upcoming public hearings and meetings. So if someone received a postcard or heard from their neighbor that there was a meeting on April 6th, or they picked up a card out of the sign that was posted on the site that was near their home, they could come here and say, oh, April 6th, let's see what that's about. And they would click on that and it would take them to the document that describes what the meeting's about. So that's by date. And then the next is we provide a list of current developments in the separate tab. So this would be if they had the name of the project or the PZ number that we assigned to the project. They could come here and find it by the PZ number or the name of the subdivision that's been approved. A new addition and improvement, we think, with this is that we've started to list projects that have been approved and are under construction. So there would be a page to provide an update regarding projects that have been through the process, but they're currently under construction, like the apartments down the road or the reserve at Wildwood,
Yeah.
or the number of other projects that are under construction. That's not something we've done in the past. And certainly, it's an improvement, we think. So these pages, I won't click on them now, but each of these are hyperlinks and each of the projects have their own dedicated project page is what we're calling them. And I'll share those with you after we get through the third component of how they might find a development they're interested in. Before I go to that, we've also added a couple of buttons here on this current development page. The first is a new idea that we've had. Mr. Lee's idea is to have an e-newsletter that was dedicated to public notices for meetings so that someone who might care about all development in Wildwood and not just the ones within 3,000 feet of their home could sign up to receive an email notification when there's a public meeting scheduled and what it's regarding. So that's a new thing. We haven't rolled it out yet. It's available for people to sign up, but we have to work through some of the workflow with it before we go live with it. And then we also assumed that people who might be interested in current developments in Wildwood might also be interested in watching the meetings that our current developments are discussed. So we created a button that takes them to the YouTube page that will have all of the recorded meetings discussing current developments. And then next, the very pretty side of this website is we created a story map. So this is a map that it's an interactive map that people can navigate. And sorry, there's the glitch is because of Zoom. This all looks normal on my computer. And so people can navigate. So if they drive by projects like the Reserve and they see it under construction, they could come to this map and be like, well, what's that about? What's going on there? And they click on it. Then there's a short description.
That's awesome.
And then a button to click for project's details, which would take you to the project pages that I'll show you in a minute. I want to show you, we offer the opportunity for people to, this is an embedded map into the city's website, but we also offer the opportunity to view it as a full screen map, and it looks much nicer. It's a lot easier to navigate. And so, again, the list of the projects through here, and they can move around, zoom in, or they could start with number 1 and then just scroll down and see the different descriptions and click through if anything strikes their fancy. So I'm gonna jump back to the current development pages and then very quickly show you kind of the meat of the new update. This is where people navigate. The next section is where people learn the information that they're seeking. So the project pages are broken down into by name, and then we have a simple description of what the proposal is, a status, and then we couldn't help ourselves as planners. We've got the petitioner, the property address, general property location, locator numbers, et cetera. And then we've got the council member or the council board where they can click through and find your contact information if they wanted to contact you about a particular development, and then the staff contact if they had questions for staff.
I
And
think it's
then-
very good you put the details in there, Travis, because just a description might get confusing to somebody, and this gives a unique designation.
Yes, thank
So,
you.
Thank you.
And so then we created this graphic. Pretty much any development in Wildwood has 7 steps: development and zoning review, the public hearing at commission, the information report and department recommendation at commission, letter of recommendation, final action by the planning and zoning commission, and then on to city council for public hearing, and then the legislative process, and then the site development plan approval. So that's kind of the big buckets. So we created this graphic to demonstrate that to people. And then underneath is a table of, as the project moves through those processes, we would update this table. The supporting document, this is the agenda item that went to the Development and Zoning Review Committee. This would go to the packet of information that went to the public hearing for the Planning and Zoning Commission. And then on down the line, they could follow through as the reports are issued and see where it's at in this process, in this table. And then all the documents would live here as the project moved forward, where anybody could access them to see what the history of the project is or whatever they might be interested in. This is opposed to how we currently do it. And you have to know how to navigate the agenda center. You have to know what the meeting date was. You have to know if we skipped a month because it got postponed. You just have to know a
Really
lot
hard
about
to
it.
find it.
It's all there. We just tell people it's all on the website.
Yeah,
But this is a simpler way for folks to find it based on the project that they might be interested in. And then we can do things like this and provide exhibits for people to get a quick look, because some people just want to see that plan and go, oh, that's fine. that's okay with me.
Yeah.
Or they might see it and go, I really need to get involved with this. So we can do things like that too.
And Travis, as far as the timeline goes, how soon after meeting A does the information get updated on the website? Within a week, within 24 hours, within?
So the kind of the workflow side of it, the day-to-day side of it for us is whenever the information report for West Mill was prepared the Friday before October 6th, once that's uploaded to the website through the Agenda Center, we would just add a simple step to our workflow and we would throw the link on this page before we left for the week. So it should be as up to date as the Agenda Center is.
Okay.
And for just a brief little background, we had pages like this prior to the pandemic. And it was well received by the community. It didn't quite look like this. We didn't have the story map capabilities yet. But we did have pages like this in the past. It was very well received, and because we archived a lot of documents from the website, we broke a lot of links, and it got to the point where we just had to take it down. So this has been done. It's been well received by the public and you all, elected officials. So we're hoping that this is a step in the right direction.
Awesome.
And you've gotten guidance from our any developer resources on how to make sure that if we have to move this off of this platform, you're not gonna break links the next.
Well, we broke the links ourselves.
Okay,
The city decided to archive a bunch of documents, which led to that page. So that's a story for another day, but we're moving forward. And also, and thank you for the question, because we had an individual commercial broker contact us about what's going on in Wildwood for residential projects. We were able to give them the story map that you all saw, and they were very complimentary of how helpful that was for them to understand
That's great.
all of the work that's going on here.
that's great.
The quote was, "This is really slick." So I took that, Melanie, as good job.
Nice work.
Yeah, this is really excellent
Fantastic,
work.
Travis.
And if there's any suggestions after the meeting via email or however, we're happy to take them.
I have a
On
question.
the agenda center page would be, which has nothing to do with this.
We have very little control.
Councilmember Rambo?
Yes. How are you defining development? Like, is it any new building being constructed, or is it add-ons? Is it somebody putting in a pool? Is it, well, okay, all of the above, or how?
So it's basically, and this is, I don't wanna complicate things, but this is also connected to the recent development trends report that we prepare each month.
Uh-huh.
We've slightly modified that to make it a little more streamlined for you. Pretty much anything that would land on that report that has to go to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay.
Well, we'll start with the DZRC, and if it has to go through the Planning and Zoning Commission process, and then I would add to that some of the site plans that we've done for like the Durga Temple and the Mergen Temple. Items like that would be development. It's not for, at this time, it's not for Board of Adjustment cases. It's not for people pulling zoning authorizations for a new accessory structure. It's not including any of those types.
I
It's
don't
just
think it
the
should.
Planning and Zoning
If
Commission.
there's FAQ or something like that, you can put those criteria right in it so that people.
We can
will
further
know.
describe, yeah, on the page, we've not spent a lot of time in kind of the introductory paragraphs and things, because those are kind of the easy ones to do. That's a good idea for something like that.
Yeah,
Yep.
just to describe.
Great
what it is
job.
in
Yeah,
context.
very good.
Very good.
job.
Thank you, Travis.
Thank you very much. Great work.
With your permission,
Wow.
Charity, I just wanted
Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
to say thanks to Melanie, Travis, but for putting this together. They've been working pretty hard on that, so I just wanted to call out that is a really cool tool, and I know I've showed a couple residents what they put together thus far, and some people are really excited. We also have some info about it out going into the Gazette, so folks are going to be able to take it for a swing here soon. So just wanted to highlight some really good work from the team.
Nice work, guys. Yeah,
Good job.
really good. Thanks, Tom. All right, that takes us to Park Matters.
Travis
7
can go
items.
home if he wants.
For consideration. First one is bidding results for the resurfacing of the parking lot area at Anniversary Park. Director Vivich.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, starting back in 2024, we've been discussing resurfacing Anniversary Park. Anniversary Park is named because it opened about 10 years after the incorporation. It has not been resurfaced in that time period, meaning now almost 20 years old. We did a bidding process initially in 2025, but we also discovered that the Missouri Department of Transportation had desires on some additional money for the route improvements, so that money is to be used for resurfacing was shifted. The city council, as part of this year's capital improvement program, put money back in for the resurfacing. We bid the project. We received 7 responses. The low bidder and a qualified bidder is Emir. Emir has done work in the city of Baldwin. The street superintendent, Scott Hummel, is familiar with their work and said that all 3 of the top bids are good companies. And so tonight, the department is respectfully requesting endorsement of Emir for the resurfacing of Anniversary Park so that legislation can be prepared for the April 13th city council meeting.
Somebody like to make that motion? Councilmember Dodwell, seconded by Councilmember Rambo. Any discussion on the motion? Being none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Any abstention?
So just a couple PSs. The bid is less than what we budgeted by $6,000. And it's less than the last bidding process as well. So it really turned out,
Awesome.
we made lemonade out of those lemons.
Perfect. Oh, exciting to see that done. Next on the agenda is the memorandum of understanding with Department of Natural Resources for the Al Foster Trail in Ward 6. Director Rudich.
Again, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the committee, as you may recall, in 2025, the park superintendent at Castlewood State Park contacted the Department of Planning and Parks and wanted to propose a sharing of responsibilities along the Al Foster Trail. The process wasn't necessarily to have the city take it over. It was just to do general maintenance requirements, whereas the state would continue to take care of all of the bridges, major repairs, resurfacing, et cetera. The committee endorsed that, and the committee requested that a formal memorandum of understanding be prepared. That formal document is part of your packet tonight attached to the memorandum. Tonight, I am not asking for any action. I'm providing it to you so you can have a review it at your leisure before our next meeting next month. And in that time frame, I will have our city attorney review it again as well. So if there are any initial questions regarding this, I'll be glad to try to answer them now. And one caveat to all of this is the amount that we spend cannot exceed $8,000 per the motion of the committee and the action of city council.
Councilmember Dowdle.
It's mentioning having contractors do things. This would be city contractors that we currently have under.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's a very good question. As you know, we do those maintenance contracts at the start of the year. We would use one of those.
Okay.
Okay. Awesome. Anybody
Thank you.
else have any questions? Okay, thank you very much, Director Rudich. Next is the Village Green Phase 1 and Essen Log Cabin Update Ward 8. Director Rudich.
Thank you again. If you haven't been behind City Hall, there's a mammoth structure that's come out of the ground.
Wouldn't say mammoth.
Well, it sure looks bigger than I remember it, so how's that?
It just doesn't have all the trees around it.
So just a couple quick items. Obviously, the Essen Log Cabin is moving forward very quickly. Charette Creek Excavating has done a wonderful job. The master carpenter that's doing much of the work out there has, I think, just taken this on as a personal challenge, and we just couldn't be happier with the quality of the work right now. 2 things relating to the Village Green. First, some of the furniture was delivered today, and so there are benches and trash receptacles now out at the Village Green. The remaining furniture, according to Bombshell Construction, will be months and months away. And so I don't know if that's tariff related, war related, whatever the circumstance. So Mr. Dobb has offered that he would extend a $10,000 credit to the city, and we could address the furniture at a later date. And so that's the first item for consideration tonight.
Are they still, is the furniture still under order? Or on
It's-
order?
It is still under order because again, we just got the partial shipment today.
Okay,
So that's the question he has. Do we want to wait? Or do we want to accept a credit to that component of the overall cost of the project and find another solution for the purposes of the tables and chairs and a few other ancillary items?
You confident we can do that? I mean, that'd be the ideal solution because we can get it quicker, right?
Well, you may recall when Mr. Dodd mentioned back at the middle part of October of last year that he had failed to order the furniture.
Uh-huh.
We made a decision maybe to try to find an interim solution.
Yeah.
And so Ken Keitel and Andy Dodd worked together and they found a couple of other providers. It's not identical, but it was quality equipment, generally manufactured here in the United States, and it had a lot less of a lead time in terms of providing. So I think we could do it, but Village Green Phase 1 has a challenge. So I don't want to make a promise,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I know that if Mr. Dobb said months and months, that's probably a pretty accurate description these days.
Okay.
And then secondly, there is a change order request from Bombshell Construction relating to the delays associated with the undergrounding of the utility lines. It's inclusive of two major things, the mobilization of Next Level, which was the concrete subcontractor, and then the ongoing requirements of the city to provide stormwater pollution prevention plan. The department is not supportive of the mobilization just because I just don't see that as a legitimate cost that should be assumed by the city. I think there's an argument could be made that mobilization means I got in my truck and drove out here. I don't know if we should be paying X amount of dollars for that. However, I do think there is a legitimate component to the stormwater pollution prevention plan improvements and their maintenance. And I think CDI should pay for that because they made the mistake on the engineered plan and caused a delay. So tonight, the department is seeking direction on the credit relative to the remaining furniture that was not shipped with the items we received. And then to basically direct our city attorney to basically have CDI respond to requests to compensate the general contractor for the additional stormwater improvements. Thank you.
Councilmember Rambo?
Yeah, I think, I would like to get the furniture here, and if you have reasonable confidence, we can have American-made furniture of similar quality, similar cost, much more quickly. I'd like to authorize you to at least go and try to do that, because there's no harm, no foul. If you can't do it, we've already got the stuff on order, and we can then, take the credit, if we do find it. So, if that's a convoluted motion, but
You want to
if
wait
that's
to
what
do
you want.
everything at once, or do you want to have this motion separated?
I want to separate it.
Yeah,
but-
it seems to be separate.
Make the motion.
Okay, so that's,
Sorry, the
Yeah.
good news is we're less than 4 weeks away from the next meeting, so I think I can have something back pretty quick and to you as the committee.
please do, go ahead. Yeah, that's.
Got a motion on the
Yeah.
floor for them to explore
Uh-huh.
other options.
Yeah.
Second by Councilmember Dodwell. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Okay,
And then the other relates to the change order. And again, I think we ought to at least attempt to have the responsible party, in this case CDI, compensate the general contractor, Bombshell Construction. And I think it would require obviously some discussion between attorneys, but I just don't feel that the city is at fault here. And that the cost of that change order should be borne by the taxpayers. We paid $250,000 to CDI to do the plans. And so I just feel it's incumbent on us to make them stand tall.
I agree with
I think most of us has felt that way from the beginning when we
We've
first
talked about
started
this
this, yeah.
multiple times, I think. So would somebody like to make that motion? To
I
refer
will.
it to the city
I will.
attorney? Councilmember Dodwell, second by Councilmember Rambo. Any
And,
discussion?
Chair, before we vote, could I add a little note here too?
Yeah,
And I know this was in the report, but I just wanted to emphasize the fact that we do have, and this is standard within all of our agreements. And, in this case, I do think CDI bears a lot of the blame for the stormwater management component of the SWIP, but at the end of the day, we do have a change order process, and for all the other change orders that took place, they had submitted the documentation prior to us executing and making said changes. And the department recognizes that during the course of a construction process, you're going to have instances that accumulate. That's what they're pretty much saying in this change order is it's an accumulation of fee over amount of time because they had to come out more and make sure the SWIP was maintained. That said, they should have been submitting that on a almost at least weekly, quarterly basis, getting us to approve it as a change order in of itself. It wouldn't be an after action change order. And then also just bringing up the point that having a change order come in at roughly $400,000 and then coming back with a different change order, that kind of speaks to itself too in the validity of the claim. I do think it is true that they did have to maintain the SWIP a little bit longer than necessary. I just think at this point, the department and the city really shouldn't be funding that component of this because this really truly wasn't the fault of the city.
yeah, I think we all agree on that. Okay, so we have the motion of the second. And all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstention? Okay,
Thank you.
cool. So that,
I just have one
Yeah, go
question
ahead.
on that. Will Bombshell be notified that this is where we're taking things?
Certainly.
Okay,
My intent would be to tell him we're gonna pass this on to the attorney and see what we can do to gain you some, to make you more whole.
yeah, okay.
okay, next on
And-
the, go ahead.
Oh, one thing, sorry. And this is something I just want to double check too about the chairs and the trash receptacles. To just make sure, and I'd have to just check back on the agreement, but was the credit commensurate with the cost of what was bid out? Joe, I would have to double check that to make sure.
In conversations with Ken Keitel today, he said yes.
Okay, just making sure. Okay, thank you.
I checked the line items relative to the different components of furniture and found that the credit would be comparable.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
Okay, next is Village Green Phase 2 Engineered Plan for All-Inclusive Playground.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the committee, we have the third version of what I would call an engineered plan for the installation of an all-inclusive playground. The third plan contains roughly 3 sheets. The key sheet is the one that actually shows the location of the playground relative to the 3-acre site that is west of the Civic Oval. And as you can see, it's kind of been tucked into what I call the northwest corner of the property, partially because of favorable grades. And in my opinion, more importantly, other than one small tree, we can save all of the mature trees on that portion of the site, which I think is a really substantial win for the city. And it adds almost immediate aesthetic and integrity to the plan itself.
Just a real quick question on that.
Sure.
Has our arborist reviewed the method for which water is gonna get to those brand trees? Cause I know we have somewhat permeable surface that's going down on this playground, but
Mike hasn't yet been given the grading plan because we don't have it.
okay,
Once we have the grading plan and some of the additional information about the cleaning walls, things along those lines, I'll make sure he sees it first.
I was just curious, cause at City Park, we lost some trees once that stuff started going down, but they were integral inside that area versus offsides, so.
What I found is, we do the best we can, but it just takes an errant contractor or just with it.
Oh, yeah,
and the best laid plans. And we lost that oak on the east side of Old Pond School. And I can assure you, between that volunteer group that did the oversight of the renovation of Old Pond School, they were out there chewing on that guy every day, and it's just like, what happened? But
They
So-
don't listen to you.
so you have what I consider probably the best plan to date available for your review. It does show the parking access off of Crestview Drive. As you know, that's probably not something that's feasible. But the struggle that the engineer and did play our consultant on the playground, internal, that being the city administrator and us, is how can we have an inclusive playground when they have to go almost 300 feet to get to the access point? So we showed parking. The firm, the engineering firm has tried to integrate it into the future design of Main Street so it wouldn't be disposable or temporary in nature. So we're staying on that. Tom, Rick, and I have had a conversation about Crestview Drive, and I think there's going to be more to follow on that shortly. And then the couple last items, and I'll do this as quickly as possible. Stormwater, that's where they're working right now with MSD, trying to figure out the best solution. And as you know, we've kind of asked them to expand and look at phase one, and then just see where it all goes, which means City Hall to the big basin behind the theater. So I'll have more information shortly on stormwater. Lastly, Ideal Landscape Group, which is the general contractor and has engaged the engineering firm, has asked that we consider pre-purchasing the restroom facility at approximately $210,000 because the lead time on that is anywhere from 4 to 6 months.
Is it a modular, one of those modular ones?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Look at the picture here.
Now, key points about that, obviously, it's one of those things that if there is a nuclear attack, we all should run into the restrooms. But they'll probably withstand it. It is fully accessible, and we do have adult changing tables and other amenities in there that are specifically intended to accommodate the population we're trying to reach. But yes, they are saying that with the lead time, the sooner we do it, the better. I know it's a pretty substantial ask. So tonight, I provided you the information. We're looking at the best color selections, and I need more input because we have the playground furniture and the equipment, and I want to, and what's in Village Green Phase 1. I want to make sure it all kind of fits together if we can. But I wanted you to see it and get your first impressions. If we do have that long of lead time, we come back at the meeting in April and have a plan in terms of the color selections, et cetera. Would that be something that we could consider? Thank you.
Councilmember McCutcheon?
What's a playground surface?
It's like community park.
So it's cushion.
Yes, it's the soft material. It's not mulch.
And then my other question, sorry. So if we have parking on the Crestview side, how are residents gonna get to that? Are they gonna come down Crestview?
Either come down from Etherton Road or come up from Main Street by City Hall. We've reached that point where we have to make a decision. I'm sorry. If we can't have an inclusive playground, I don't want to sound like a broken record. Have people either walking 300 feet, 100 yards of football field, or having someone push their child, or
But we would have to open that though, right?
we're gonna have to do something. And this isn't necessarily the time or place to discuss that, but
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's-
So,
that's fine, it's fine.
no, if you, so they'll either have to come down this way to Main Street, but then you still won't be close to the playground.
Well, I like to think we maybe can dodge that issue just because we have some space, but it's not great space. Or they have to come down on the private street, of which we own 2/13. We're not, it's not that we don't have rights. Construction access is gonna come that way. There is no other way.
Okay, so they can come in that way.
Councilmember Rambo?
Yeah, 2/13 is quite discouraging. There was an impetus behind the acquisition of rights of way and so on and so forth, and doing Main Street the way it needs to be done. And we haven't talked about it in council or in this meeting for a while, and I suspect that it's a closed session discussion item, but I'm wondering if you are seeing glimmers of hope in that regard.
Mr. Lee?
Yes, I can add some context there, and thank you, Dr. Emmer, for bringing that to the forefront here. We will most likely be having a closed session discussion on this, but what I can share is we have been making movement in the right direction here, and we actually do have a pretty good understanding of what right-of-way would be necessary in order to fully open Main Street in the way that we've all planned it and the way that we've showed in that preliminary design sheet. That said, the one thing we are concerned about and we're wanting to make sure of, because it can make things tricky if you start making offers and going out to acquire property, is one, Ameren, and the fact that they're going to have to move on the north side of the street. They're going to have to push those lines back. I think we're looking at it, most likely they're going to have to push back quite a few feet. I mean, probably 4 or 5, 6 feet, and that's going to play a role into the negotiations we have with those property owners. Because not only are we going to be acquiring the land to make right of way, we're enough right of way to accommodate their pushback utility poles. Because if we have that, we can't afford to underground them. Though that was $3 million, $2.9 million in and of itself. We do have monies budgeted to do the street, but right now it just isn't in the cards money wise to be able to put the electrical underground. The other consideration is just we haven't finalized the stormwater component with the consultant, and that's something we've been pushing them on. That said, we don't believe that's going to be as much of an impact. What we're really worried about is that easement from Ameren. And the thing we're worried about is going out with the right-of-way numbers that we think we need. And then Ameren coming back and saying we would need a separate easement on our own, or hey, no, we don't need a separate easement. We're not going to go after it ourselves. We're going to need to be placed in your right of way. You need an extra 3 feet. And then while we're negotiating with someone, we may be in a situation where we'd be asking them, oh, we actually need 2 more feet. We want to make sure what we offer at the front end is exactly what's going to happen and no more, no less. And that it's very straightforward and transparent. But nonetheless, we are moving closer to it. We will be having a discussion about this shortly. But as Mr. Vunich had mentioned, we are kind of getting to a critical point here. We have been pushing the consultant on this. We might have another item coming back with that consultant too. It is a consultant we had used for the Village Green. So we a couple convoluting factors all playing in at once. But overall, we do have monies budgeted this year for the right-of-way acquisition, and I think we'll have offers out before the end of the year.
Awesome. Great.
Great news.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I did not want any action, but if you would look at the restroom facility and if you have some thoughts on finishes and colors, I'd love to hear on this.
I would vote for some kind of a gray green to kind of go in with the rest of the space around there. I'll let you pick specifically which ones you want, but
Oh, that was, yeah.
the baby
Yeah, it's in
tan,
here.
didn't see it.
this color. No. I kind of,
Oh,
it's on your website.
Yeah, it's on here.
all right.
Which
I'll look again.
documents it under?
Like I say, if you just want to look at it, shoot an
Is it
email.
under fund two?
And I will be glad to pull it all together. And like I say, we're in a good position. We're less than 4 weeks from the next meeting, so we'll have something back pretty quick.
Thank you very much. Okay, next is a Village Green Phase 2 fundraising efforts, an upcoming event. It's Ribbito.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, as far as the fundraising efforts are going, we are, as of the first of the month, we were at approximately $24,000 raised so far. Our Able Fables book company that we had partnered with for a couple of months, they got back to me and she was very apologetic, but they raised $215 But that was selling 13 sweatshirts and 30 t-shirts, so there was clearly a lot of support. I feel like those are great numbers. But yeah, at any rate, she was very kind about it and offered to donate books, which I made the suggestion that maybe we include, you know, these books that focus on inclusion and stuff, maybe put them in our community park for the storybook walk. So there's that thought, and maybe even add in there something having to do with the sponsorship of the park while people are going through this, just to raise awareness. So the group met again just on Monday, and it was a very productive meeting in which they worked through a bunch of the components of the upcoming event, which is going to be combined with the Village Green grand opening on the 25th of April. There's going to be a silent auction that leads up to the week that leads up to the actual event. And there's still kind of a question about whether or not it's going to end at noon when the Village Green or stay open longer. Natalie said depending on what we have going into the going into the auction, it might be worthwhile to keep it open just to keep bids up. And we might even attract national attention for some of the items that we have for it. So refreshments will be offered, and Unlimited Play will provide a brief, it'll start with an introduction from the mayor and some background information provided by Director Vunich. And then, Natalie will give share a little bit of her story, as well as Chelsea Bellew, who is a resident of Wildwood and one of the initial families that started this whole thing and is also part of the fundraising group. But they have the suggestion of incorporating as much fun into this as possible, and maybe having, kids introduce people and have them as a part of it, or maybe handing out things and such. And so we're working on those details still, but it should be a fun event. And so afterwards, the people that are at the VIP event that will be hosted either in here or council chambers will then go up and join everyone for the ribbon cutting. And so the ribbon cutting will be on site, and Unlimited Play will come out in advance to kind of outline the park in spray paint, and then where each of the individual pieces of equipment will be, they're gonna have a sign that kind of describes it, maybe shows a photo and has a QR code so that people can, sponsor that equipment while they happen to be on site taking a little walk. And so it wouldn't just be the people that are in the VIP group that would have the opportunity to, see it, walk it, experience it in more of a 3D kind of environment. And so it should be fun. Not all the details are worked out. However, we did get invitations ordered, and there was we provided an image in your packet, but it's essentially going to be a card that has a handwritten note from the mayor, and then the invitation inside that has some details about the park on the back of it. But I think they turned out absolutely lovely. And so those invitations will go out to a list of people that we've come up with. The department, as well as the group, has also come up with a list of over 100 people that we've reached out to for sponsorship and or to donate items to the silent auction, and those have already started rolling in. So that's exciting news. We have several wine tastings, some of them in home, some of them at restaurants. We also got tickets for the ambush, and even a signed Taylor Swift guitar. And so, so this could actually draw a lot of attention and could actually bring in a significant.
We had 2 bottles of rum until.
I don't know what bottles of rum he's referring. I don't know where, no?
Yeah, we need to promote that Taylor Swift guitar.
Oh,
That
yeah.
can- that
Yeah,
can
so
pay for the whole
Unlimited
park.
Play suggested that we,
How much is it? My granddaughter loves Taylor Swift.
well, that's
Auction.
fantastic. We will keep you
It's
in
an
mind.
auction. It's an auction, so
No.
Where will
whoever's
the
gonna
auction be?
The highest bidder is.
Right, so it's gonna be an online auction, and even while the event is going on, it'll still be online. There'll be QR codes, and we'll have, tablets and stuff. But I think that leading up, during the auction, we're gonna set up maybe tables in, the
Yeah.
lobby area here and have things on display, because sometimes people just wanna see the things, But yeah, so we have a lot of really great items that have come in already, and I'm excited to see what's coming next.
I know that Facebook has, excuse me, I'm sorry. I know that Facebook has ad space.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering if like TikTok and Pinterest and so on and so forth, I wonder if they have those because that guitar alone is probably worth a lot of money if we can get word out. It's more of an, more attention, national presence. I mean,
Yeah, that's definitely. what
somebody
we're
in New
doing.
York City might have a lot more money than somebody in Wildwood.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's definitely worth looking into.
Yeah, I mean,
And
it's worth looking.
and or if we could promote the entire silent auction.
Yes,
that
that's
way,
what, that was my point, but you've got a keystone piece
Yeah.
that's could be quite valuable if we played our cards right. So,
Absolutely, absolutely. And Unlimited Play has done this before and they're actually gonna be handling the auction component, but they have a tool that they use.
C3, so they're hosting it and we'll have all the bidding online through Unlimited Play.
how will
It's
we get
nice
the word
when-
out? How will we get the word out about the auction?
Well, we'll
Yeah, I mean, we'll do it through
Digital.
whatever means that we have as the city, but Unlimited Play, I mean, this is not their first rodeo.
Okay, yeah, good, okay, all right.
So,
Just
but
if you're
if
saying.
anybody has
What do you
any
think about a
suggestions,
autographed picture of a Parks and Planning Committee?
Oh, yeah. Or a meet
And
and
or
greet.
if you happen to know anybody that
Have
would
any,
be interested in
auction
donating
items?
something, by all means, send them on up here with it. We are happy to take in anything. And we've also, in our letter included something to the extent of like with our smaller businesses that no auction item is too big or too small. And we had the businesses of Wildwood reach out to all of the businesses. And so therefore we could even combine things, that in businesses of Wildwood basket. Or Councilmember Robleski and I discussed like a Route 66 basket and things like that. And so, things swing around Funtown, we're getting a gift certificate for, and so all kinds of fun things. And we've heard from some of the businesses that are interested in donating items. And I've also heard from at least one business inquiring as to, how much they have to donate in order to get their name on a sign, and I was happy to let them know. So, so it's moving right along, and I think that we're getting to a very exciting time in this process. The grant that we discussed at the last meeting, the $50,000 through the T-Mobile hometown grants is due on Tuesday, and we have all of the letters of support that we need for it, and it's just a matter of continuing to fill out all of the questions and such, but that should be submitted by Friday, so fingers crossed there as well. And aside from that, I think that those are
Channel 5.
all.
I tell them about Channel 5.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So that is exciting. That is, I do have more updates. Chelsea Bellew, again, is on the committee or the group, the fundraising group, and was also one of the moms that started this conversation. And she was actually interviewed by Mike Bush for a little news event, and I think it's supposed to be a 4-minute, which apparently is a
Because of
lot of
fame.
airtime.
Yeah.
And so it's promoting both, inclusive playgrounds and such, but it is also telling her story and her struggles and focusing attention towards the city of Wildwood and this fundraising that we are doing for this. So hopefully we will actually reach a broader spectrum there as well. And so, it is very exciting. Thus far, we have, I think, 45 potential donors or like people that include in the VIP invitations. And if there's anyone that you would like included on that list, please, by all means, send me their.
What's included in the VIP? Is it,
It's just the event before the ribbon cutting.
okay, do
It's,
they
it's,
get any food? Do they get any hors d'oeuvres? Do they-
yeah, so we plan on having light refreshments. Yes, and so there will be
Okay.
food provided and
And then is anybody going to, I'm asking because I'm trying to find people, but they're asking me, so what am I coming to?
coming to learn more about our park and actually walk the site and
Yeah,
to bring their checkbooks. Oh, wait.
I know that, but
But
to
yeah,
ask
that will
somebody for
definitely.
money, you have to give them something.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and the silent auction, I think, will be quite a draw. And
Mhm.
so that's exciting in and of itself.
Okay.
But yeah, and Natalie will be giving a little bit of a speech and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, learning about how this can impact our community, I think is the
So
majority.
that VIP group will have a presentation done
Mhm.
prior to going
Yes.
outside. That was my
Yes.
question.
Yeah, and then
I'll see it here from Natalie from Unlimited Play and from the mayor.
but then they're
each
going to do
community.
something
And we'll
again
go-
outside.
Then we'll go out to the ribbon cutting and they'll be able to see.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's just to learn more about it and learn why it's important and why this is something we're pursuing. And then go out and enjoy the 3D experience walkthrough. So we're going to make it as fun as we can.
Have y'all seen the lights at night in the
Oh, they're
park yet?
fantastic,
It's a
aren't they?
really good guy, cause I haven't seen them
Yeah.
yet.
Oh, well, you get to see them tonight.
Kind of like they're floating.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Alien spaceships.
Yeah, they're just,
So,
and they're very dim.
So the invitation we got, I guess, the note, whatever, it said lunch with the mayor. So is that the same thing as the VIP thing?
I don't think it says,
It says what, brunch?
I think it should say like refreshments.
That's what you did, but the meeting before we talked about brunch. That's
Oh,
what
yeah, yeah.
the invitation.
So which are we doing?
Refreshments.
Yes.
Light
Light refreshments, so it will be kind of brunchy, type finger foods, things like that.
Beer and ice cream.
We're working on getting someone in with mimosas, maybe, some kind of something like that. Limited Play is working on getting the catering component to involve beverages and such, and so,
Can the city do that?
to my knowledge.
Yes, we asked.
Yeah, ask permission later.
Forgiveness, Deb.
Gotta
not
keep-
permission.
We discussed
Right.
it prior.
And with that, that concludes
Yes, we
our
did.
presentation, unless you have any more questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Tom, did you have something?
I was just gonna mention, to provide some clarity, my understanding was that we were going to have an unlimited play providing some of those components that may not be able to be provided by the city. But in some instances, we are able to provide an alcoholic beverage, like at the board and commissions, obviously not a massive amount, but that said, the understanding is that would be coming from the unlimited play side.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
That takes us into the last two items under Parks Matters, which are the Wild and Recreation Programming, update on current future offerings and facility reservations, event registrations and ongoing long-term maintenance costs for parks and trail facilities. Does anybody have any questions, or did you have anything on that, Director Vintage?
No, sir, just if there's any questions, the three of us be glad to try to answer them.
Anybody? Okay, none there.
Mr. Chair,
Giving us the info.
And then we have a closed session.
I was going to ask for a motion and second to postpone the closed session.
Okay, would somebody like to make that motion?
Because we're out of time, or
A couple of things. First of all,
the phone call that you just received on it?
there seems to be a question of ownership.
Oh,
So I'm trying to work through that, so.
I'll make that motion.
Got a motion? Postpone, second by Councilman Wolfowski. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstention? Okay,
We just need to go back.
all right, that is it. Does anybody have anything under miscellaneous? I was gonna just say, this brings us to the end of another year of the Parks and Planning Committee, and I just wanted to thank everybody for the opportunity to serve as chair and appreciate all the conversation
job.
and discussions that everybody brings to the table, and it's always a great group. And to those council members that may or may not be on the council or on the committee anymore, great job, and thank you for your service. And it's been a pleasure serving in this committee with everybody, so.
We don't have a meeting in May?
April will have one, and then May will be the new committee.
Yeah, that's what I meant. We didn't have that.
What's the date on the April one? 21st? So that's after the election.
Remember
Oh, but
that
we don't certify it until May.
Since we only have one meeting a month, the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
certification.
Don't certify
You
until-
have one more time.
Well, that was a good warm-up speech.
That's good. Well, now I don't have to give it next time.
I'd like to hear it again.
Most importantly, thank you to the department and the city staff for all the hard work you guys
Yes.
do on putting everything together for us and dealing with our banter, so. Anyway, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Councilmember Dodwell, second by Councilmember Bluski. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, thanks a lot, guys.